This here will be our last video on Easter decor. So let me show you what I'm going to make. We have our little templates here and our small floral templates as a part of what can form our infusion kits. Now these guys, we have the lettering of Easter, E-A-S-T-E-R. So the plan is to fill these guys with our color decor that we've been using so far for Easter, which is white and our translucent dyes to create pastels. However, I'll be using some white and just the translucents alone, but I'll show you how to do that soon. So the aim is to fill these guys, let them cure, attach some bunting ribbon to them, and have it as your last final piece of decor for Easter. This lettering is really cool though. It could also be something that you could theme for your children's names. Such a great idea, but let me show you what we've got to create these today. We've got our little templates. These little floral templates come like this. So after we fill them, we are actually taking off this brown paper and we have a white acrylic on the underside, and then the back side is completely translucent. So this isn't the finished product color. Now to fill these guys, I'm using Resi Clear. So I've chosen Resi Clear because we can pour it at shallow depths and it cures within 24 hours. So I know if I fill these, I can come back the next day and they're ready for us to take off this paper off the top of and the bottom of the acrylic, and they're ready to go. Now I have measured and mixed a batch of our Resi Clear, and I have already tinted a portion of it with our White Horizon tint. Okay, so if you want details on how to measure and mix, please refer to the link. We are also going to use our translucent dyes, the same colors that we've been using for all of our Easter decor. So we've got our Kelly Green, our Shocking Pink, Brilliant Blue, and our Lemon Yellow. Now in my little dispenser cups here, I've already divided a portion of what was my Resi Clear that I've mixed up, ready to tint. Aside from that, I've got some art stirrers just to be able to mix, and some little pipettes in case I get to some of this really fine detail, like especially in these little corners, and I'm unable to drip it out of my dispenser cup. So I do have these to help me out if needed. Trusty Resi isopropyl. So I will give everything a little bit of a mist after I've finished, and that way we'll pop any bubbles that are in our mixture. So let's get started. Okay, as always, as I'm about to start with our resin, I'm putting on our black nitrile gloves. And once again, even though we do mention it quite regularly, all of our resin has no VOCs and is 100% solid, so no extra solvents added. So it doesn't release fumes and it is not toxic when we are mixing our hardener and our resin together. So I don't need a mask. I am working in a well-ventilated room. However, if you do have any respiratory illnesses or concerns, we advise you to wear a mask just to keep yourself safe in case. Okay, with my mixture of Resi Clear and our White Horizon tint, I'm just going to divide a little bit up into my dispenser cup. I feel that these dispenser cups have a little bit more control when pouring because they have this little pig spout here. So I'm going to pour my white into the main channel in behind all the flowers in our little templates here. So I'm going to pour all of my white first, and then we'll get on to doing the flowers. Now when I'm filling, the aim is to fill just close to the top. If it's a little under, that's better than it being a little bit over, because as soon as our resin goes over and to the top of where our paper is sitting, it's actually really hard to remove the paper. So I'd rather have our resin sit just under the level of the top side of this acrylic template. And I'm just being gentle to drip in slowly. I'd rather go back and top up my resin than overfill it. And if you did overfill it, you can actually use some of your little pipettes to squeeze and remove some. Okay, my white is now filled. Now, one thing that I always make sure of, and I know that my table is set up like this because I regularly work on it, is that my surface is level. So as I'm pouring into these templates, the resin will self-level. So please make sure that your surface is level that the templates will be sitting on. as your resin will only self-level to the surface it's on. So once everything's sort of self-leveled and I know that my white has made its way into all the little points in between the flower petals, I just go back and double check that I have filled everything right, that I've got everything topped up correctly, because if I find it's a little bit low, I'll just come back and add a couple more drips in just to make sure everything looks relatively even between all my templates. Because again, when filling these sections, sometimes it's easier if you just pour the bulk of the resin in the wider part of the channel and let it sort of feed out into the smaller parts. If you're having trouble getting your resin to make its way like into the tight corners, sometimes just something like a skewer to help it go through. But generally, if the resin is used relatively quickly and it hasn't thickened up, it will self-level into those little areas. If you find you've accidentally dripped into the wrong channel as well, like say if you put this white accidentally into one of the petals, you can actually remove it by either dipping your cloth or a piece of paper towel soaked in a little bit of isopropyl and basically wiping it out in that cavity, even putting things like your skewer inside the cloth and sort of digging it out. I haven't had that happen yet, touch wood. So, but if it happens, I'll show you how to do it and then how to manage that. But you can basically just wipe it out. I'm pretty happy with how full we are with our white. So I'm going to move on to putting our translucent dye into my 40 ml dispenser cups and mixing that up, and then we'll get pouring with our translucent colours. Okay, so I'm going to add my dyes into each of these. That was about 5 or 6 drops there of my lemon yellow to start with. Now, what you've got to remember is that we're pouring into a really small, thin channel here. So even though my little dispenser cups, when I'm mixing in my translucent dyes, even though these look quite bright, I need to consider that that may be a little diluted when I'm pouring out in a thinner layer in a smaller area. So I'm quite happy at the moment with the concentration of this yellow, because I did put about 5 to 6 drops in this small amount. So I won't add any more to my yellow, but I will get onto pouring my yellow straight away now that we've mixed that one in. So my plan is to pour the yellow in the centers of each of my flowers. Then we're going to come back through with the remaining 3 colors and color up all of our petals. So I'll get going. You'll notice as I'm going, I'm just wiping the spout of my little dispenser cup. That helps me take the drips off the bottom, so that way if I'm about to pour in a little channel and I'm not aware that there's extra resin on the bottom of my dispenser cup, it'll help me avoid extra drips going where I don't want them to go. Okay, so that is my yellow. I am just going to clean up a couple of my drips around the outside. And the main reason I want to do that is in case I happen to move these templates around a little bit, I just don't want the resin stuck on the bottom side of them. Otherwise it will mean when I try to remove the paper off the back, it may be harder as there'll be resin stuck on it. Now we will move on to adding in our blue, pink and green. And once again, remembering even though my colour looks quite dark here, I am pouring it out in a much thinner layer, so that will dilute my colour a little bit. The effect with the translucent colours in these templates as well is really cool, because it gives it like a stained glass effect. Because remember, we are removing that paper off the back side. So when you hold it up to light, you'll actually be able to see through our translucent colours. We won't be able to see through the white, that'll remain opaque, but we will be able to see through our flowers. So it'll give it a really cool effect. Okay, so we've got our 3 additional translucent colours mixed up, and I'm now going to pour them into the petals and basically have all 3 different colours in each template in each flower. So I'll get started. Okay, so we have our finished Easter. And it looks super cute, also looks Day of the Dead, also looks spring, but it'll fit in really well with all of our Easter decor. So really happy with this outcome that we got at the moment. We've got a nice balance of our colours for our translucents in each of the petals, and that white background really makes our colours pop. So I am going to give it a nice fine mist with isopropyl just to pop any of those bubbles that may be in my mixture. And I just keep the misting very light And that way it's just breaking that surface tension and popping any bubbles that may be there. But other than that, now I let this sit here for 24 hours before I'm able to start peeling away my paper and revealing the final product before we can attach bunting to it. So we had our little letters cure pulled off our paper backing off the acrylic on front and back, and we've been left with these super cute little Easter Infusion floral templates. Now, instead of just leaving them sort of flat and by themselves, what I want to do is create bunting with them. So I have gotten little split rings from just a basic jewelry kit, and I have used our Resi Ultra Cure to attach them as a ring to the top so I can actually hang them. So I'm going to show you quickly how we do that, and then we'll be basically attaching them to some string so we can hang it as our part of our decor range for Easter. So I'll just let you know what we do have here to work with. We do have our Resi Ultra Cure, so single part resin that cures with our UV black light. So I do have a torch. I also do have a lamp to put it under because that speeds up the process. We have our little split rings like I mentioned. These do come from a basic jewelry kit. And aside from that, I'm going to pop some gloves on and we are going to get started. Okay, so I keep this method pretty simple. I just want my torch prepped and ready, and my torch is flat. All right, we're not using the torch. That's why you always have a backup. We have our lamp. So I'm gonna have the lamp ready. I'm gonna move that a little bit closer for me. And what I'm gonna do is just make sure I've got my split ring, and I rest it against my hand on the middle of the top of my S. And I just want one little dab of my Ultra Cure, and I want that to secure it in place. Then I'm gonna add a little bit more to it once I've got that little bit of security and a little bit of attachment happening. So I just do a little bit just to get it in place. I pop that straight under my UV lamp. Let that cure to tack it off, and then once I know it's just tacked on there, I can add a little bit more of my Ultra Cure just to secure it in place really well. So now I know I've literally just tacked it on there. So if I was to push this too hard, it would move. So I've got it in position where I'm happy with it being tacked there. I'm gonna add a little bit more now to secure it. Then I'll be able to sit it under the UV light while I work on the next one. And I just run it up the ring just a little bit. I don't want too much on here, but I do want to make sure it is attached to the top of my template and securely to the ring. So a little bit on front and back, and we'll pop it under my lamp here. Then we can move to our E. I've already done one E, an A and a T. Okay, just pop my lid on, but I'm going to remove my gloves now and start the tying up process. So just off of my string here, I have cut 6 little lengths. The plan is for me to feed all of my letters through onto my string and make sure I have enough string to be able to tie the ends up to where I want to attach it. So we'll leave it relatively long because we can always cut the ends off if we don't want so much excess. And then just aim for our halfway mark and work back from that. Now the aim is to feed our little offcuts through and hang them and tie it onto the exact point of our main part of our string and adhere it that way. And with this particular string, this like raffia string, it actually works really well just doing 1 knot. So you can put a little bow in it, you can do 2 knots. I probably won't bow it, I might end up doing 2 knots and then cut it off so it looks nice and neat. But it can be as simple as that. So we'll work our way along with our E-A-S-T-E-R. So we'll get onto our A next and feed our little strand through, making sure our spacing is relatively even. We don't want it super close together, but we don't want it too far apart either. So probably, we're talking maybe a 10 centimeter mark between each of our little attachment points, and tying that on. As simple as that. So we'll work our way along, secure that on, cut off our excess, and we have our Easter bunting. Now that looks super awesome. So this is something that we can hang and attach anywhere we like. So our final piece to our Easter pastel theme decor. So this is customization on next level, guys. So if you have any questions about this process, please leave them in the comments below. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and join us next time.